All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to completely unlock a new way to look at special needs transportation. Look, if you've ever driven a school bus, you already know the deal. Managing the environment inside that bus can honestly be just as challenging as navigating the crazy traffic outside of it. So today, we're equipping you with a seriously powerful set of strategies. We call it the Behavioral Detectives Toolkit, and it's designed specifically to help you decode and manage those challenging behaviors safely, effectively, and with a whole lot less frustration.
I mean, just look at this image, that blurry, rainy mirror. It perfectly captures that feeling of sheer chaos that can erupt right behind you, while you're just trying to keep your eyes on the road. It's incredibly overwhelming. But rather than feeling helpless against that chaos in the rear view, we're going to flip the script. We are going to treat challenging behavior not as a personal attack against you, but as a mystery waiting to be solved. Kind of like looking at a map with a magnifying glass, we're going to zoom in and find the real route to the destination.
So, here is our route for today's explainer. First, decoding the hidden language. Second, the core ABC framework. Third, the 4 functions of behavior. Fourth, proactive driving and detours. And finally, number 5, effective incident reporting. Let's get moving.
First stop, decoding the hidden language, and our subtitle here is absolutely crucial. Behavior is never random.
Okay, so before we use any tools, we need a massive mindset shift. When you see an action, say a student throwing a backpack at the window, it is so easy to just label it as bad behavior and move on, right? But if we use our detective's decoder ring, we see that this action is actually communicating a hidden, unmet need. In this specific case, the student might actually be communicating, hey, I am totally overwhelmed by the noise and I need to escape. The big takeaway here? Behavior is literally a tool. The student is using that tool to achieve a specific result, mostly because they just might not have the words to ask for it.
Moving on to our next section, the core ABC framework. Think of this as your behavioral magnifying glass. To properly decode those unmet needs on the fly, we rely on this primary tool. Every single behavior follows a specific chain of events, breaking down exactly how behavior operates on your route. Think of it like a stretch of road. First is the A for antecedent. That's what happens right before. Then comes the B for behavior, the actual observable action during the event. And finally, the C for consequence, the payoff that happens right after. Getting a grip on this chain is exactly how you regain control of your bus.
Let's break it down, starting with the A in our framework, the antecedent. Put super simply, this is the trigger. It's whatever immediate event or condition set off the reaction. It is the spark right before the fire. Now, triggers aren't just one single thing. They actually come in several distinct categories. You've got environmental triggers, like a sudden loud noise, bright glaring lights, or even just a specific bumpy road you drive over every Tuesday. Then there are transition triggers, like the act of boarding the bus itself, or hearing a 5-minute countdown to drop off. You also have social triggers. Maybe a peer is sitting just a little too close for comfort. And finally, setting events. These are underlying factors that lower a student's baseline for dealing with stress. Think lack of sleep, missing breakfast, or honestly, even just a gloomy, rainy Friday morning.
Okay, now let's look at how we define the B, the behavior. We call this the dash cam rule for recording observable actions. When you're tracking a behavior, you have to describe it exactly as a camera would see it, nothing more, nothing less. We have got to move away from unhelpful subjective descriptions. We call that the vibes approach. Look, writing down, Johnny was being bad and acting aggressive, or he had a meltdown, that actually doesn't tell us what happened at all. Instead, we need objective, measurable facts. The dash cam approach says, Johnny stood in the aisle, yelled a swear word, and threw his backpack at seat 4. Remember this golden rule. If a dash cam couldn't record it, it's a feeling, not a behavior.
And finally, we reach the C, the consequence. This is the payoff. Once the observable behavior happens, the road splits. If the behavior gets a reward, like say peers laughing or the driver stopping the bus to argue, well, that behavior is positively reinforced. It is guaranteed to increase because, hey, it worked. But if you take the other route, the extinction route, the behavior fails to get its desired payoff. For example, if a student yells for attention and the driver completely ignores the yelling while praising a quiet student, the disruptive behavior fails, and over time, it changes.
Section 3, 4 functions of behavior, featuring the SEAT decoder ring.
Now that we have our ABC magnifying glass, let's figure out the why behind that payoff. Decades,
Literally decades of behavioral science tell us that every single behavior serves one of 4 specific functions. This creates the acronym SEAT. A student acts out to gain sensory feedback, to escape or avoid a task, to get attention from peers or adults, or to acquire a tangible item or privilege. That's the whole shebang. Those are the 4 reasons why challenging behaviors happen on your bus. Think of this diagnostic matrix right here as your ultimate cheat sheet. It connects the function to what it actually looks like on your bus and exactly how you should respond. For sensory needs, like loud humming, allow safe stimming or give them noise-canceling headphones. If it's escape, like picking a fight just to avoid getting to school, adjust their seating or teach them to request a quiet break. When it's attention, like yelling inappropriate words, simply ignore the negative outburst and heavily praise the positive peer behavior around them. And for tangible functions, like shoving someone to get the back seat, you set clear boundaries and use first-then language. The absolutely crucial point here is matching your driver response to their underlying need.
Let's shift gears and move to Section 4, proactive driving and detours. Let's talk about altering the route.
Look, we've analyzed the behavior, now let's actually act on it. The absolute best way to manage a behavior is to prevent it before the bus even leaves the curb. You can proactively alter the antecedent, the A in our chain, in 3 distinct ways. First, adjust the environment with strategic seating charts to physically break up a negative ABC chain before they even board. Second, give clear transition warnings. A simple verbal cue 5 minutes before drop-off can totally prevent a meltdown. And finally, address those setting events immediately. If a kid boards looking absolutely exhausted, lower your demands. Try to provide a quieter environment right from the start.
But let's be real. What happens when proactive steps just aren't enough? When a student takes the blocked road of challenging behavior, like screaming, we have to realize it's a dead end. We must guide them to a safe detour that gets them to the exact same shared destination, meaning it has to satisfy their exact same SEAT function or need. We call this detour a replacement behavior. It's just a safer alternative action. For example, instead of screaming for your attention, the detour is waiting for a red light and raising their hand. But here's the most important part of this entire concept. The replacement behavior must be easier and faster than acting out. Otherwise, the students simply won't use it. You have to reward that good behavior immediately to prove to them that the detour actually works.
Okay, but you need to be prepared for the danger zone. When you stop rewarding a bad behavior, like finally ignoring a student who always yells for attention, you are going to hit a speed bump. The behavior is going to temporarily spike into the red zone. It will get worse before it gets better. We call this an extinction burst. It's a temporary, intense spike in the frequency or intensity of a behavior when its usual payoff is suddenly removed. The student is essentially thinking, hey, this yelling usually works. My microphone must be broken. Let me turn up the volume. Your action plan? Consistency is your seatbelt here. Stay the course. If you give in during this burst, you literally just teach the student that they need to yell louder next time to get their way.
All right, our final stop, Section 5, Effective Incident Reporting, closing the case.
Taking everything we've decoded today and putting it into a report is how we actually fix the route. Comparing these 2 bus incident reports shows exactly why this matters. On the left, the vibes approach says, Marcus was out of control today. He refused to listen and acted aggressive. He always does this. That tells administration absolutely nothing. But the detective approach on the right, it uses our ABCs. A. Bus approached stop 4. B. Marcus threw his lunchbox at the window and yelled, no. C. I pulled over and delayed the route by 3 minutes. Now that provides highly actionable data to actually fix the problem.
And as you chart these patterns, keep the rule of 3 in mind. You don't need to write 100 different logs to prove your point to your supervisors. No way. You only need to look for a clear pattern over 3 consecutive days to mathematically prove a behavioral function. 3 solid days of ABC data is all it takes to prompt a meaningful intervention. We'll wrap up this explainer with this final thought. Understanding the ABCs is about management, not tolerance. Decoding behavior isn't about being soft, it is about being highly effective. By acting as a behavioral detective, you reduce your own frustration, you completely eliminate exhausting power struggles, and you guarantee a safer ride for every single student on board. So, the next time chaos erupts in that rearview mirror, I want you to ask yourself, what hidden pattern will you decode on your route tomorrow?